and thanks for the technical team in the background that has made sure that this takes place. I hope and pray that you have many people who have logged in and they're actually talking to us and they will talk to us. Our topic as it stands, I hope you still hear me.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Our topic as it stands, I would like, because as we talk about divorce, there are things that we do not have to, we have to understand before we proceed, okay? And the divorce usually is actually an outcome of something, because you can't begin life in a divorce. It means by the time you have divorce, there was marriage before divorce, right? So I hope somehow we'll look at the causes, or how do we get into divorce? Because at the moment, we cannot just jump into divorce, navigating its pitfalls in divorce matters without knowing where divorce comes from. If you don't know the cause, then you never cure the disease. I'm not so sure, I cannot check backwards to check how many people are looking at us, but there's some statistics that you ought to have on your fingertips, that for every 50%, for every marriages that happen, this is statistics in America. I want you to get so much of Africa, because the panelists, I can see we are all Africans and probably would like to speak a language that is way back at home. When I look at 50% of people who get married actually end up in divorce. And we see divorce happening in people who marry at a young age than those ones who marry later. Maybe by the time they get married, you're yet to tell us, maybe they know why they're getting married, and those ones who marry young, probably. So I don't know, because you're the experts in this. But I would like us to start by asking Albert, can you first say hi to the members who are listening in to you and make a quick, brief introduction of yourself? I'd like to begin with, I'll end with Pastor. Let me begin with Herbert. A quick introduction, yes, put on your microphone and say hi to the audience.
Hello, Lydia.
Yes, Herbert.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can. I can hear you loud and clear.
My name's Arinda Herbert.
Yes,
in
Herbert.
Lauren.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a senior associate with Saimbel Advocates.
Okay.
What our discussion today is going to be about, especially from my side,
mm-hmm.
And especially for the people that are listening in to us.
Yes.
The purpose for which we intended this webinar for is to enlighten people on how to navigate the challenges that are associated to or with divorce, especially for the time that I've been in practice and the divorce matters that I've handled over time. You realize that there are very small things that ought to have been considered prior to parties getting into a divorce proceeding, but then they overlook them and they end up making the divorce process a very, very awful experience, and something that everyone would not wish to get through. And you as an advocate, you start feeling like you're doing society a disservice, and yet this shouldn't be the case. So for all the participants and the people that are viewing us across the globe, you're welcome, and thank you for participating.
Thank you, Herbert, for that preamble. And then we want to hear from Pastor Bishop Andrew Lugolobi. Can you just give us a simple brief of who you are and what you're going to do in this discussion? Pastor, enable your microphone and talk to us.
Greetings to all of you.
Yes, Bishop.
My name is Andrew Lugolobi. I am the General Secretary of the Born Again Faith in Uganda.
Yes.
I'm the former Auxiliary Bishop of Kampala.
Okay.
I'll take the role of the church perspective in divorce matters.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pastor. And then we have on the panel, we also have a counselor. And that is none other than Evelyn Lufafa. Evelyn, please say hi to the audience.
Yes, hello, everyone. And thank you for joining in as we discuss this very pertinent issue. Hello, can you hear me, Lydia?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, very good. All right. So, Evelyn Connie Kharono Lufafa is my name. I am doing private practice under the names of Samo Therapy Consultancy. It is a psychological company, a company that helps people to deal with their psychological and emotional issues. And in this topic, I'll be coming in to handle the emotional pitfalls. How can a couple go about in case they decide to divorce? Okay, because by the time a couple comes to files for a divorce, unfortunately, in most cases, the marriage is already dead, and the feelings of attachment which hold a marriage together have already run down. The unfortunate thing that it involves a lot of psychological dynamics and because of ending a marriage. And therefore, this is when a counselor comes in to help people. If they are to end a marriage, then it has to be ended in a way that is not going to destroy even their own lives and even their children. And if they are to make it work, then they will still need support. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. Now, we have a very wide diversity of this particular topic we are looking at. When I look at the pastor in their perspective, because according to the church, till death do you what? Part. I would like to hear what the pastor would say of divorce, because according to what church allows us, there is no divorce. That definition doesn't exist. But before we come to you, Pastor, can Herbert tell us what is divorce? Then we can discuss exactly what that one means. Because I really don't know how, Pastor, you're going to handle this. Herbert, please tell us, what is divorce?
In a simple man's language, divorce is a process that is instigated or started by parties that have gotten into a marriage, a legally binding marriage. So those that are not married cannot engage into a divorce process. For example, most of our community families are established under a cohabitative kind of family setting. So few people get into the marriage setting, which is the legal way of formalizing your relationship. So this divorce only applies to people that have engaged into a legally binding marriage. It can be church, it can be civil. So unless you've been married, that's when you can engage into divorce. So divorce is that process which dissolves that marriage or that agreement in which parties get to be joined together either through church or through civil marriages. Yes.
So it means that if I am not legally married, like I carry myself to my boyfriend's home, I have children, 4 or 5 children, and then it's time for me to say, these things, I call it quits. I'm actually not divorcing, I'm simply taking a walk out of his home.
Exactly.
It's not called divorce.
Put it the right way. If for those that are not into a marriage, you just walk. But
just
in a
walk
marriage,
away.
In a marriage, you walk, but you remain with a string tied at your back. So until you get divorced, you cannot engage with another person. If at all you intend to marry someone else, you cannot until you're divorced.
Wow.
So it is a form of dissolving a marriage.
Wow, that's a tight one. Now, when I look at my statistics, when they said the reason as to why people divorce, I find lack of commitment as the highest percentage. It takes up 73% of as to why someone would divorce. And then arguing too much, that's a funny one though. I thought an argument is just means of just exchanging ideas. Arguing too much takes up 56%. And surprisingly, domestic violence, as a matter of making people divorce, it is at the lowest, 25% of causes of divorce. So marriage issues are also very complicated. I would like to hear from Pastor, having gotten the definition from you, the land person. I don't know what we are doing, the rest of us. The land person has told us that divorce is basically a separation or dissolving an agreement made in two legally married partners. So, Pastor, I hope you can hear me, Pastor Andrew.
Yes.
What is
Yes.
the church's stand when it comes to divorce? Does divorce exist anywhere in church policies? Because we may be discussing a topic which that is irrelevant as far as church is concerned.
Good morning to you all.
Good morning, Pastor.
Good
morning.
First of all, I'm not only a pastor.
Yes.
But I have different fields and backgrounds on me.
Mm-hmm.
My first degree was in education, secondary education. I also have a degree in law. I've also engaged in different courses. Mm-hmm. One, international women, human rights and health. Then the other one is also international human rights for children. That is for the Geneva University. When I'm going to handle this topic, not leaning on one side, though the canon will in one way dominate.
The canon in you
when
will
we
actually...
talk of divorce,
okay.
The canon will somehow dominate, but okay. Divorce does exist. When you read the scriptures, Mark chapter 10 verses 4, in Matthew chapter 19 verses 7, Jesus said that Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and send his wife away. Now, it is the same in Isaiah chapter 50 verses 1, which says that says the Lord, where is the certificate of divorce by which I have sent your mother away? So certificate of divorce does exist. However, the terms differ. When you go to the scriptures I've just read in the Gospels, the grounds for divorce is just different from what we have in civil marriage. Here, the ground of divorce is only adultery. And the conditions also, there is a condition to divorce. The condition is that you don't remarry. So that is it. But it does exist in our circles.
Now the Bible seems to be harder. When I divorce, I don't remarry.
That is the Bible. However, on the other, priests or clerics don't wed. We do not conduct marriages according to the 1904 Marriage Act. When we are conducting marriages, we are agents of the state. We do not stand or practice the canon law, because the canon law, according to the laws of Uganda, the Judicature Act, Section 14, it is not an applicable law in Uganda. And therefore, we do not wed. That's why when we are conducting a marriage, when it comes to signing, we sign as agents, we sign as agents of the state. So we sign as commissioner. Yet we are not commissioners. We are pastors, we are clerics. So the law does not allow us to practice the canon law.
So,
therefore, we are operating within the civil marriage.
Okay, so it looks like the state actually has a higher upper hand in the whole marriage institution, the state, and then the church seems to be blessing what the state has endorsed. I hope that is what is all about marriage.
Definitely, we do not suffice anyway.
Okay, so now according to the statistics I actually have, it looks like women actually file for divorce more than men. I don't know the secret behind it, but I want to hear from the only woman we have on the panel who's actually there. Me, I'm this side, I'm not part of you. The only woman who's happened to be the counselor herself. I don't know why women would actually walk out of marriage more than men. Maybe men get comfortable therein. But as you answer that, answering, as you answer that, also give us who are those people? Who are those people affected by this particular act of divorce?
All right. Thank you so much, Lydia. The mere fact that women are the ones who file for divorce, first of all, we should say that the statistics say that right from the 1970s to date, the divorce rate has gone higher and higher. And remember, these are the times also when we've seen a lot of emancipation happening. We now have activists, we have gender activists and so on. So women have also been made aware of their rights. And it's just that because it's a patrilineal society, when a lady is finding a marriage not working, or it's very abusive, or generally speaking, it's not really working, it's much easier for the lady to ask to move out, because the man, by our nature of patrilineal society, already has a lot of advantage around him. Men have a lot of advantage. It's harder for a lady to tell a man that, please move out of my house. You're not doing things the way you want. The woman will take a lower step, because naturally that's how the society is, and say, if the marriage is so bad, you'll either die in it or save your life by moving out. So the men already have a certain big advantage. That's why few of them will easily go and ask for a divorce. I don't know what else you asked me.
I also asked you, like, who are the affected parties in this particular place?
Well, when a divorce happens, to begin with, the immediate family is affected. The initiator of the divorce, the one who asked for it, and the non-initiator, maybe the man or the woman in this case. If there are children, it makes it even worse. Even the extended family. Unfortunately, divorce affects even people who are not part and parcel of this marriage. The extended family, the family members, because everyone, divorce, maybe when my turn comes, is almost rated to death, It is a loss. So it affects a big number of people, more so the immediate family.
Okay. In the immediate family, we see in the picture the children.
Yes.
The children are people who have never understood why daddy and mommy have to go different ways. Actually, along the way, I think they keep on demanding for either part. Where is daddy? Where is mommy? Even when they've seen the process taking place. But as a counselor, I want us to have a little look at children, because when you look at it as a mother, we cannot really not look at children. What exactly does divorce do to the child?
Naturally, children love both parents. It does not matter if the father is, whether the one who is labeled as bad, or the mother is the one who is labeled as bad in this aspect. For them, children in this world only need two things: their mother and father together, regardless of the issues that they are going through. And therefore, unfortunately, the reason why we are talking about navigating it in a good way is that the divorcing couple forgets that these children are not, for them, they're impartial. They are not saying, now, this is my best person. So they end up using these little children as scapegoats, They begin fighting for the custody of children. One takes them, then the other one denies the other one to see them. And then the children are in in the middle of it, especially if children have some understanding from 7 years, 8 years, they're able to tell that mommy and daddy argue a lot. They're emotionally drained. They go to school. Sometimes they think that their friends even know what is happening at their homes. They are affected academically. They lose out because they are just thinking, I hope I'll find, today mommy and daddy will be happy again. Now, when we come to teenagers, it becomes even worse. That's why many of them take to bad behaviors. They become permissive because home has become a living hell. And they want to, sometimes they think they are the problem. Sometimes they think they can do something to bring these two people. Yeah, so there's an overwhelming emotional pain on children. That's why when we talk about navigating divorce, the pitfalls of divorce, it is serious. It is something that is not common. For many years, of course, it has been only the lawyers because that's what people know. Go to the law and divorce and, walk away. And so, but we would love now the public to know that they need both services. Divorce is highly legal, but it is also highly emotional. Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much, Councillor Evelyn. Now, as I'm coming to Herbert to tell us the consideration, things we should look at before we divorce, I want to go to Pastor Andrew. Pastor, I need you to tell the audience, is there a way? Because when you look at what councillors talked about, there are so many negative things about divorce. The positivity, probably, if I could say, because they say there's nothing in this world that has no positive. Okay, the positivity could be maybe you're saving your life, you're getting out of bondage, but it has a lot of negatives. Now, Pastor, is there a way someone can avoid the divorce? You avoid it from happening. Is there something we can do? That goes to Pastor Andrew.
Thank you. Divorce has been happening or is a result of uncoordinated systems. First of all, the state itself having a mandate in wedding couples. The Register of Marriage has no department of counseling and guidance. There should have been a tribunal to conduct marriage issues before they go to court. But the state is not interested in such. They're only interested in registering and then court processes. Now, in our discoveries, in most of the divorce, we have discovered that most of the divorce happen because there is an intention to remarry. You talked of the highest percentages for women. Whenever, in most cases, when ladies get someone else who seems to be better than the husband, they push for divorce. So the moment that is broken, the moment it's cut off, they settle. But so long as there is something that is driving behind, they will always push for a divorce. So when you are to handle matters of divorce, we really need to first of all look at what are the causes. An intention to remarry. Whenever you see someone driving for a marriage, domestic violence in the family, there is an opposite sex behind. We have handled several matters, several issues, and that is one of the things that is always driving marriage confusion.
Okay,
women
Pastor,
can bear a lot of hardship. So what we need to do is creating two things. Let us have tribunals. Let us also promote marriage counselors. Before someone goes to court, let them first go through a system. But running before the court, also go before the magistrate or a judge who is also going through hardships in marriage. They only grant it. You don't have any reason as to why they keep it around. But it has a lot of problems to the family and the people around. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pastor. And it looks like from the discussion we have, prevention is better than cure. Part of the things that they put here as the reason as why people get divorced is one being commitment, lack of commitment. The other one is arguing too much. I didn't know that though. Maybe that is why women who are introverts somehow have better marriages. The counselor would tell us about that than the people who are too, they know what they want. They are so assertive. They are so what? Probably it has a challenge also. There is also people who marry young, then unrealistic expectations. Like Pastor, you said, the woman might have come into marriage with particular type of expectations. When they not met, and now they want to jump out. There's also lack of preparation, but lack of preparation for marriage. Pastors, you have a role to play in this. Before people are married, they actually give you time with them. But what pastors do, they focus on the day of saying, I do. In this particular side of preparation, they go away. And then I also thought that after marrying me, you have a follow-up. You become a family pastor. You need to know what is happening in our lives. But after we say, I do, that is all. You paid the church fee and off pastor goes and also disappear in your own world. Pastors have a part to play when it comes to preparation for marriage. It contributes 44% of the divorces that actually happen. I want to go to the lawyer. How about, I hope you're listening in and you're somewhere. I want to hear from you. What are the considerations? What are those things we need to look at as we go into the process of divorce? That goes to Herbert.
Thank you, Lydia. And thank you, our participants, for keeping online. First, I want to make a comment regarding the people that you choose to handle your divorces. It's very important that you choose the right people, the right processes, and you choose people who appreciate what a marriage institution is all about. It's why I'm saying this is because not every lawyer is supposed to be handling family matters. And that's why you see in advanced countries, they have lawyers that are specifically specializing in that area of family law. They appreciate what a family setting is, and there is a particular approach that is designed to ensure that you maintain a certain level of amicable relationship, promote family interests of all parties that are involved. That's to say children, parents, and the people who are divorcing themselves. Without saying much, I want to also note that I've handled divorces where it's white people that are involved, and divorces involving our African friends. Now, if you realize most of the divorces that involve white people, these people, actually, even when they are divorcing, they are shaking hands, they come to court together, which is very, very uncommon for our African brothers and sisters. You find here, when they even when they it is war. It's basically war. So marriage here is treated like it's a do or die. So that's why you see there are very many high emotions, intense kind of cruelty towards each other. And because it's mostly because of our non-liberal setting of families. Here you find that it's too patriarchal. The settings favor men. Basically, if I'm to say, the laws were designed to favor men. If you even look at the grounds themselves for divorce, they are basically were designed to favor men, to make it hard for women to access divorce. So with that stated, it is very important, as I said, to have lawyers who appreciate the considerations that one must take prior to thinking of divorce, or even when you are into the process of divorce, to help you look through these considerations. I will start mentioning one by one. Let's give an example of property.
I was about
property. Property is one of the reasons why divorces become very highly intense. Parties are interested in things, matrimonial property, money in the account. So at the end of the day, because of these interests and because of the other not wanting to give this person a share of what he or she feels that they've worked for their entire life, it makes divorce very, very aggravating. Secondly, there is also an issue of marriage benefits. This is something that is very familiar in the white or Western countries, which is not very familiar here in Africa. These people have such settings that partners have what they call insurance benefits, social security. Here we've started having it now. So people most times don't look into the things. They realize later, and then they start to want them, and then it appears like you're being selfish. So these are things that also contribute to making divorce processes very, very complicated. The other third one is wills. You find that when people get married, it's all about love. You care about each other. But when you get to that point of divorce, then you start remembering that you made a will in so and so's interest. Maybe you put your wife as a joint, the sole owner of something, and then now you want to change. So, and the other person is like, no, then you also, it's mine. So these are some of the things you must look at before you start a divorce process. Then there are issues to do with names. I will give an example of the former Vice President of Uganda, the Honorable Kazibu. Yes, Specioza. You remember there were issues to do with the name. The husband wanted her to stop using her name. Then the wife was saying, I've been known as Specioza Kaziwe, so I cannot. So there are those things that you must consider, such as that, which are little, but you must consider them. So that's also another one. Then there are also issues of custody, children. I'm the one to be with them. They are to be with me. I'm the one that should only have sole custody. The woman should not have access to the children. And this is mostly to do with men who are applying for divorce. You find that they're interested in taking the children away from the woman. And for me, because of my background and the understanding of the approaches and the interests of all parties that are involved, I always discourage sole custody. Someone having entire custody minus the other party having access and denying them. And you see, out of my period of practice in this area, I found that actually the partners, the wife and the husband, use children as baits against the other. Mostly, I'll give an example. Women want to remain with children because they know that is the only way the man will send money. And she will also be able to use her own things. Because these are some of the issues men bring. I don't want to send money to that woman. Instead of taking care of the children, she looks after herself. And then after a week, she's asking for more money. So these are things that make divorce very hard. Then another one is co-parenting, which is practically what I've been talking about. You want to only be the only parent. You forget that you did not manufacture, let me use the word that, you did not manufacture these children alone. You are two people, and these two people are responsible under the law and under the Constitution to take care of these children. So there shouldn't be anything to do with I'm the only parent. It should be a responsibility of two, even when you've divorced. Then the other one is child support, which is more of co-parenting. When you're co-parenting, you have to look at things to do with how are you going to provide child support. So you have to divide your responsibilities. Say, me, I'll do school fees, me, I'll do rent, I'll do welfare and medical. So these are things you must consider. And then there's also another important thing, which is to do with alimony, spousal support. You find that most of our settings here, ordinarily, let's give an example of our parents right now. It is something that is being outdone today. Most of the women today work. But prior to that, you find that women were staying home, the men were the ones working. So alimony is something that would enable such a woman who has not been working to be able to be provided for with maintenance for the time after her divorce with the partner. So here they are considering that the woman has been with you for all this time. At least there should be some practicable and reasonable consideration that you must be giving her to keep her living her life like it was before. And then there are also, the last one is the issue to do with DNA and let me say parental disputes. Now you find that when people are divorcing, that's when a person now remembers, oh, that child, by the way, resembles the neighbor. He doesn't look like me.
It's not my.
So you get, yes, he's trying to run away from the responsibility and saying that the child is not mine. So you find that they start challenging. I'm not the mother. But most, okay, that's funny, but most times mothers don't dispute the children because they know it is he or she, it's he. I mean, it's her who has given birth to her, to he or she. So most times it's the men that dispute because he's trying to avoid taking responsibility of the children. So I always tell my clients to have these considerations looked at before we actually even commence the process, because it helps you understand how you're going to navigate each of these things. So we approach it from a mediation level before we engage. So you find that most lawyers always want to engage. They don't want to go through the processes of healing, counseling, because even us as lawyers, we do what they call legal counseling. We make you understand what the case is all about. We make you understand what may cause problems as we are trying to secure that divorce for you. So basically, we make it something smooth. So by the time we get to those levels, you know what is coming, you know what is needed. So it makes it more easier than the ordinary way of handling divorces. Yes.
Thank you so much. I'm having a little bit of challenge here. That's why you say a little bit of motion. But I want to go to the counselor now. Psychological preparedness as far as divorce is concerned. Because at the end of the day, it has psychological impact. But then how do we prepare for this? How does the family or the couple prepare? I'm seeing something that Herbert has mentioned, something to do with what the couple did not expect to come. They didn't see it coming. Now, when it so happens, it's a shock. They are all, and when you're shocked, you respond differently. So as a counselor, psychological prepare. Meanwhile, I don't want the listeners to think that the panelist or the team here is advocating for divorce. No. However, it is an inevitable evil that can happen, and we ought to be aware. And so if it so happens, you should be prepared for it. Now let's go to the counselor. I want to hear your psychological bit of it. How can a family or people prepare for this divorce?
Okay. Yes, I would like to start by saying that the truth is, even when we are saying divorce is mutual, the decision to end a marriage itself is seldom mutual, right? Because if people are living a very comfortable life, they have common interests, and then they are determined to keep their marriage, and therefore they will not seek for divorce. But you see, like we said, this thing starts from somewhere. Divorce, it's like a cancer. It begins eating the family slowly. People can see things coming, things are happening. People have stopped talking. Some people can take a month without talking to each other. There's violence. There is, all those bad things in the home. But unfortunately, in most cases, people decide to be silent about these issues. And by the time people walk, one person walks and says, now, I think I'm asking for divorce. These feelings of attachment, which are supposed to hold their marriage together, are already down. They are worn out. And in most cases, this marriage is already almost dead. Now, like what Herbert was saying, because, this involves a lot of emotion. To begin with, a marriage relationship moves on levels, which are legal, which are financial, which are emotional, and family at large. There are all those psychological dramas and so on. So much that one writer even said that of all possible events that can cause emotional pain to a human being, apart from death, it's death and divorce that rank high. So, meaning that when there's a divorce, it's a death of a marriage, isn't it? And therefore, we have fear of loss. There are acute feelings of anger. There is feelings of betrayal. There is humiliation, loss of identity. Herbert talked of a name, someone walking to you and tells you that, hey, stop using my name. Even before they even go through a formal divorce, stop using my name. You know, so there's loss of identity and all those toxic emotions. So how does a counselor here help? Usually there is this person who will walk first. I don't know, the lawyer will advise us. It's rare that two people will walk to their lawyer and say, we want a divorce. Usually there's this initiator. And the unfortunate thing, the person who has walked to ask for divorce, they've been preparing themselves. If it's a woman, women are good at preparing themselves sometimes. They can take even 1 year thinking about it. This marriage is bad. I think I'll move out. But when they are quiet, now sometimes the person who is not ready is taken unaware. And that's why there's need to sit the people down and ask this person to also give the other time to think and process why the lawyer is saying. Some lawyers will just start and say, okay, you want divorce? Let us start. Let's begin, without any mediation, without, hearings and, giving the other one time to process. Because sometimes people can process, and we've seen people who have gone back to a marriage. Of course, a few of them. So it needs time to take stock of what the divorce means to the other person. The person needs to recover from feelings of abandonment, humiliation, and that rage before it moves ahead, before they go to negotiations, and settlements. The lawyer will tell us. So the therapeutic goal here is, the mission is that the counselor will hope to monitor these people as they work with the lawyers and preparation. There should be psychological preparation. What does this divorce mean to you? Like someone said, are you really doing it because you want property? Is that all? Because we've seen people, even after getting all the property, they still remain with a lot of pain. They remain peeping in another person's life. So at the end of the day, it's not good to rush the whole system. I want the papers are here, I should sign, what? It should move in stages. The pastors involved, counselors involved, working with the mediation, the lawyers, and so on. I'm very sure a true divorce cannot take even only 6 months. Still, the lawyer will advise us. If it's really a genuine one and people do not want just to hurt and tear each other down. Yes. Yes, Lydia, back to you. Oh, has
Lydia is off.
Oh, she has got some technical issue.
I can't see him.
Okay. Okay. So I don't know if I can continue with just speaking about the role of a counselor as she comes. Okay. So okay, right. So the role of a counselor at each of this stage, right from the start, we already agreed that divorce is legal, but also emotional in nature. And therefore, where does the counselor come in? Of course, the counselor is working on the assumption that by the time the person is really down asking for divorce, it means that the relationship is at a stage where both parties cannot continue in a romantic relationship together, despite the efforts to save the marriage. And therefore, the counselor takes a neutral role. The counselor works with both. To begin with, the counselor will work with the initiator, the one who comes to ask for divorce, because also they come with a lot of rage, with a lot of anger, with a lot of too much emotions. So you want to help the person come back to their senses and process these things very well and know that they really have genuine reasons for doing this. But also the counselor will work with the non-initiator, because they can also want to say, hey, this person has asked for divorce and I'm not ready, you see? So we also, they facilitate a constructive resolution to the marital problem, whether not to end it or to end it. So a counselor plays a neutral role to facilitate a resolution where either the marriage should not be ended. They should give each other time. That's why even good lawyers usually, they keep buying time. They give these people time because they think sometimes it's just a rush of emotions. And so they need help to look at their decision. Maybe they can even get back together with time. So therapists assist clients and families in dealing with these complex emotions that accompany every stage of divorce. And divorce moves in stages. Later on, we shall be looking at, because it does, sometimes the stages keep repeating themselves, but still there's always the first step, second step, third step, up to almost the fifth step. And then also counselors provide information, and whenever possible, they steer clients towards collaborative negotiation. So the role of a counselor is very neutral. They do not side, they do not advise that now you do like this if you have done this. No, it's a very neutral. It's to educate, it's to coach, it's to help the person deal with their emotions. Because at the end of the day, after this, divorce has very big effects on someone's life, because you see people going on, but they still look backwards. They still get interested. Oh, he has married another lady. Is she more beautiful than me? Oh, he married another, she got married. Is it, so we do not want people to move on with such ugly emotions. You moved out, but you're still following up the other person in a negative way. And more so when we have children involved. I think that's what I can say for now. I don't know if, okay, Lydia is back.
I think to add on what Evelyn has been saying, it has actually just reminded me of a scenario where I was handling a divorce matter, and the former wife to my client, or rather at that moment was still a wife, undergoing the divorce process, came all looking good, a nice car. Huh? Now, when the man saw the woman, I could see that he was not interested in divorcing the woman, but he was doing it either out of anger or something, or either maybe you found out that she was having an affair or something like that. Some of these things men are not freely at liberty to share, unless you create a kind of rapport or relationship with your client. That's the only way you are able to fully assess. Because for me, I really take it as a priority to ensure that I have three things at the back of my mind that I have to assess. I have to assess the risk, the need, and I also have at the back of my mind the professional integrity. Because risk, I'm looking at, what is this man bound to lose? Does he need this woman? Does he really need this divorce? Because when you're able to understand these things, that's when you're able to navigate the best way you can get solutions for your client. Because at that particular client, I can tell you, we aborted the divorce. We aborted the divorce, and then as I speak right now, these people are together. So now, if you're a lawyer who is only interested in doing what you're told to do, you wouldn't have seen that and realized that actually you can play a role to ensure that instead of doing what you are instructed to do, you do what the client needs. Those are two different things. Now, I can assure you that at that point, my fees were more than what I actually had billed, because the client appreciated more of my human part than actually my lawyering bit. Now, the other issue is she had talked about signing papers for divorce. This is something that is more in the Western countries, where divorce is mutual, like what she has been talking about. People here agree and say, I think we have reached a point where our differences are irreconcilable. We can no longer work out. For them, they are more civil than traditional. They are liberal than conservative. So for us here, we are still very conservative, and we're still promoting those conservative British laws, where you find that everything has to be legalistic. So for us here in Uganda, mutual divorce is not encouraged. They actually, even when you're filing for divorce, you put it as a statement that for us, we have not planned, we have not connived, we have not colluded to file this petition. So in actual sense, they don't want it to be that the two of you have agreed to divorce. So it must be something that court must sit down and assess and agree that, yes, now the truth is these people have grounds to divorce. So here, divorce can never be mutual like it is in advanced countries where you just take papers and the other party signs and says it's okay and you file in court and that's it. So that is one of the challenges that we're having here in Africa and Uganda, whereby divorce, you must prove the grounds for divorce for you to be able to be divorced. Hello?
Yes. Yes. Herbert.
Oh, sorry, let me just interrupt. Herbert, can you allow Lydia in? She has been off completely. Yeah. Can she be enabled again as panelist? Just change to a different device.
I'm seeing a Lydia here.
She can, yeah, she's on, but I think needs to be enabled to those panelists' rights, kind of.
Can I be submitting as?
Yeah, you can be submitting for the meantime.
Yes, please, Pastor, you can go ahead.
Okay. Now, I'm so grateful for the submissions made by the lawyer and the counselor, but there is an oversight in one angle, and that is the involvement of the religious leaders in this matter. When it comes to divorce, spiritual leaders are left outside. We are not involved. Now we take time to groom our members, we pastor them, we nurture them, we wed them. After wedding them, when they get any marital challenges, they don't turn back to us, they go to lawyers who don't know anything about their background. They don't know anything about their families, but to them, it is a business, it is a career. It means earning. You talk of court, it is earning. You talk of the family division at police, nothing goes for free, it is money. Now, when you look at the circumstances surrounding, definitely there is no environment that can facilitate for harmony, because there are parties that are going to get fuel of the car, get rent of the office, get fees for the children. You know, most of the times we earn from the conflicts of others. Most of the divorce that happen, it's not because people want to, but there are forces that coerce them, either family, friends, workmates. One of the examples I can give that takes us back to the rationale, the reason as why the Bible says don't remarry. It gives an allowance of time for the cool of passion to cool. And those people who are being pressurizing, you know, you leave the man, he doesn't even pay for school fees for the children. Now, after a while, they cool down. But when we leave it open, as the law says, so long as you divorce, then you're a free bird, then there's a problem. Now, the Bible provides for don't remarry, to give a space of reconciliation, to give a space of rehabilitation. Now, the circumstances surrounding the current or the present situation in Uganda, there is no room for rehabilitation. That means even if people come, like even if the counselor is involved in the matter, the party will choose not to listen to, because there is no reason as to why they should even listen to anyway, because you will not solve anything. Now, at first we are using the vows in church. Now the vows as you all know, what happened to the vows in court, in that case of Julius Rabinumi versus Opa Ibrahim Somo, they were declared illegal and not binding. So that means all the time and we spend in church taking vows is just ceremonial. It is useless, and it was meant to keep these parties to feel that I'm bound to this one. Let me work it out to see that everything works on well. When we try to westernize Uganda, we shall get more problems, because Uganda will never be America. In America, people do it that way because that is their behavior. But given our background, we are not such kind of people. We are not used to having here and there, you divorce here, then you go there. Now, the moment we open up for divorce, we are going to see more death happening, because as the counselor say that it hurts, even the counsel, it hurts the other party. Remember, most of the people who are currently who are going in for divorce, they are doing it as a form of punishing. I will punish you with the divorce. When you have an argument, they come with the divorce papers. I'm going to divorce you. No, divorce is a punishment. Divorce is used as a scarecrow. Now someone starts it in a simple way, thinking that maybe it won't go far, and then at the end of the day, it ends up to breaking or the ending the marriage. By the time they sit down to regret, it is too late. I will end with an experience. In my family, my father happened to cohabit one of the employees. Now this lady came with a lot of force, changed my father's heart. Then Daddy became so violent at home. He could only come to cause confusion. He went in to go and file a divorce. Then Mommy said, no, for me, I'm going nowhere. I'm taking care of my children. But do what you feel that pleases you to do. So he decided to go, built another house. We are staying in Ngayaza. He built a house in Kalere for the second wife. He stayed there. After about 15 years, the new wife also traveled to US and got a Muzungu man and married. Then after more 3 years, that is, I'm now counting 19 years, Daddy tried to come back home to settle the matter, settling it after 19 years. So when we talk about issues of marriage, when we talk of issues of marriage, marriage is should be treated in a special way, because this involves in what we call soul ties. Even if people divorce in physical, their souls are still tied. So that tie will cause all the confusion and will cause all the chaos, all the conflict until when it is untied. I thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Actually, in the meantime, as we are trying to get in the host,
Yes.
the moderator, you can be responding to a comment from Mr. Emmanuel Kironde.
Yes.
There's a question that he has posed, and his issue is the church perspective on divorce is not coming out clearly. So under what circumstances does the church allow divorce? So in the meantime, you can be addressing that as I try to get in the moderator.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chilonde, for following. Now, when we talk of the church's perspective in matters of divorce, as I said, in church there is divorce because the Bible provides for it. Under Mark chapter 10, verses 4, Matthew chapter 19, verses 7, they talk of a certificate of divorce. The Bible provides that under those verses, that they say to Moses, that Jesus was saying, they say to Moses, they said Moses permitted a man to write a certificate of divorce and send away the wife. Now, in the Christian circle or in church, the Bible provides for a certificate of divorce. A certificate of divorce, but under one condition. The condition should be that there is evidence of adultery. That is the only ground. However, there are other conditions attached to that decision in case you choose to take that route. That is, you are not allowed to remarry. You cannot remarry. When you read Matthew chapter 5, verses 32, whosoever shall marry a divorced wife commits adultery. Anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Now, it is the same way to also to the man. Now, that is the church perspective, that divorce, according to the scriptures, it is there. It's a certificate of divorce is there. But the condition is adultery, so long as there is proof of adultery. And even if it is proven that there was adultery, then the condition after the separation, after the divorce, should be no party to that marriage should remarry. Now, the rationale for that is you give time to these people to reconcile, to come back together. That is the rationale. The purpose is to protect the family for the bigger picture or the broader picture or the other interests apart from the two. That is the children and then the other family dependents and also the relatives, also keeping the family image. So it gives room for reunion. However, as I said, that the canon law is disregarded in Uganda. Even the vows we take in church, according to the Supreme Court of Uganda, they were declared unbinding and illegal. So given the background that we also wed using the civil marriage law of 1904, we still have strings attached that now current, as I speak of now, the vows we take in church are just ceremonial, they are unbinding. We are using the civil law to conduct our marriage. We are also just agents on behalf of the state. That is why we are also right now advocating for the Christian marriage, that we also have our canon law, also part of the laws in Uganda, that we also conduct our marriages using the same.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yes.
For the meantime, I will be a moderator and at the same time a panelist. Is Evelyn still online?
Yes,
Evelyn?
I'm online. How about I can see you? Yes.
I think Lydia is getting problems. I can see her, but I can't activate her video.
Yeah, maybe when the technician comes back, they will keep helping.
Now, in the meantime, I'll add more onto what Andrew has been discussing and communicating onto the listeners.
Okay.
Now, you see, most of the religious arguments and debates on divorce, as it is a biblical argument, and that was based on the fact that the church is first of all constituted in the word family, because the church is a family. Now, divorce is something that the church or also, as I can constitute it, the family, as something that was very much of a taboo, something that community and society should look at as something that is outlawed. So in the previous or in the early days, people who were divorced were looked at as outcasts. Actually, it became very hard for you to live in the community. So divorce under those perspectives or under that perspective is something that is castigated by the religious settings. But yet, in reality, it is something that is very common in our society. And just like the way laws keep changing and lifestyles change, I can tell you in the 80s, the way people used to dress was different. The way people dress today is modern, it's transcending, it is something that is continuously changing. So even the religious norms and requirements or expectations need to follow what is happening, not really in a liberal way, still maintain the conservatism, but let things that are reality happen. Because if you look at most of the domestic, the gender-based violence in Uganda or in Africa in general, even in Western countries, is because of these conservative requirements to keep women in a marriage. Like I can tell you earlier in the days when a woman divorced and left the husband, our parents used to chase them away from home and tell them, you're not welcome here, for you were surrendered to the man, so go back and find a way of doing what? Of making things work. Now, the understanding there is that you have to go back and make sure things happen. So the community looked at marriage as something that someone must ensure hook or crook works, even when it's at its worst. That's why you hear, you listen people making vows like for the worst, for the better, but like the way Bishop was saying, it is now a formality. If you are to look at the people who are wedding today, it is like a fashion. Actually, today weddings are a fashion. Every young man feels that they should get into a wedding simply because it's something that they must do. It's like holding a phone. I must marry this and have a wedding because my friends wedded. But if you to ask them why they are getting into that marriage, the reasons they will give you will amaze you. And those very reasons, and not having that strong background for why you're getting into a marriage, is the reason as to why divorces are high. Because I can tell you as a matter of fact, a marriage is not something that there's anyone that can tell you is an expert in. It is something that either works by a miracle of God's grace, but the most important thing is if people get into it knowing the expectations and the things that are the challenges that they're going to go through and know how to overcome them. Because we are not all perfect, but we all try to be perfect. You can know your weaknesses, try to work through them, but you can never run away from who you are as an individual. So the trick is in that. Even through the divorce processes, the trick is in understanding these individuals that are involved in the divorce. You might find that someone is very petty. The reason as why they are divorcing is because maybe the woman came back late and didn't explain to him, and for him, because he feels is the man of the house, he expects an explanation. But you see, sometimes you have to forego some of these things and live in reality. The reality is, if the person has not given you an explanation, let them be. If there is something that they'll feel they will explain, maybe they might explain later or something like that. But there are personalities that are involved in this whole marriage institution, which is a complex thing. No one can lie to you that they're experts in it. Even reverends who are married divorce. So it speaks into how difficult this institution is, but it's not difficult. It's only made difficult by the people who are involved, trying to be very, very much of perfect, expecting perfect, and wanting people to be who they are and what they expect them to be. So it is something that is a challenge that is ongoing, but as society, we do not have to make it a do or die.
Yes, actually, Herbert, just to add on, like kind of what you're saying, to blend, because The reason we are speaking this is actually we do not encourage divorce because we already know divorce, if it's something compared to a death, you know what it means. It's not something that you go through and you don't go out fly. Sometimes, yes, there's this good feeling. Maybe sometimes it can be for the good in case there's a threatening of killing someone. But in most cases, unfortunately, it brings out the worst in an individual. People who loved one another will come up with words that you never imagined. It's the reason we call for mediation and calling for these people to get all the support they need. Why? If you divorce in a way that is so bad, you speak the worst words about your partner. Remember, in case you have children, at one point, you are going to meet. You know, these children are going to grow. I know of a couple. Yeah, they are friends. They're not just friends, but one was my cousin. They divorced, I think, 7 years ago. They were in a hurry to divorce anyway because, especially the corporates, they have some money. Like the lawyer was talking about property and so on. So this lady was not looking at, she would not suffer. She's doing well. They have 4 children. These children have reached university level. But I want to tell you, each of them has tried out life. This guy has tried to marry the beautiful young girls. They keep going and running away. Why? Because usually the first cut, that's why someone says the first cut is the deepest. There are certain things that you saw in this person. And even when you try to keep chasing so many, you keep failing to get what you want. So this couple, they divorced a long time ago, but sometimes their children have reached university. Others want to now get married. At one point, they need to sit down and say, oh, we are arranging a marriage of our children. Like the lawyer said, children are born from 2 people. It's not one person who gives birth. Then the lady will keep lecturing the girl, please don't call your dad. I don't want him into this. And the daughter will say, no, me, I want my father to be in all this, and I have to take this to my father's home. So you see what it involves, why we are calling for mutuality. Because whether you want it or not, you are still going to end up dealing together because you have children together. This will never end. Whether the child has a problem, you'll call on another. Now, if you're going to treat each other like, I don't know, the worst person on earth, how are you going to collaborate thereafter? And sometimes you might get a problem, and it's this very person who comes back and says, oh, let me support them, even though, you know. So at the end of the day, we have common choices that couples choose to take to resolve or end a marriage. I can mention 3 of them. One of them is usually endurance, and this is very common, endurance. That is like someone puts up something like kind of a mask, you know, that they go through all the terrible things. They decide to put them under the carpet. You know what I mean? They put things under the carpet, they bear it all. They go on without working on it to improve the unfortunate situation. And by the way, the world will never know unless one of the spouses speaks out, you know? So the two can play and act in front of others. They silently try to endure a rotten relationship. And by the way, this is the commonest, and very many couples do this. And remember, even when these two have not divorced, children, if there are children in this home, they are being still affected psychologically, just the same way they would be affected when the two have separated. Why? They see mommy and daddy shout at each other, but when they come to church, they hold hands. When they are in public, they put up a face mask. And so there will be some personal deficiencies. Then they will try to do something about it, and then they leave it like that. That's how people get depression. Others get anxiety, others get high blood pressure. They are living a rotten relationship, and they've decided to use endurance, but not to work upon it. Like the pastor said, they do not seek support, not even going back to their pastor to tell him that we are going through this problem. Maybe pray for us, pray with us. Maybe we want to speak out. For us in counseling, we believe in people speaking out to each other. So the other one, that is the first option of endurance. And I think it works well here in Africa. I think it's the commonest, and it's why the lawyer was referring to our conservative way of doing things. But we've had people blow out once, you know. The second one is facing personal problems and making an intelligent choice to build a happy marriage. Of course, this is the best option. But unfortunately, it is the one which people do because it involves work. Hello, Pastor, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. It felt like I was not hearing myself. Okay, right. So the best option, which is hello? Okay.
Hello?
Yes. So I was speaking about the options that people take. I spoke about endurance. Then the second one is facing personal problems and making an intelligent choice to build a happy marriage. This is the best option that can make any marriage work, even the bad one. Why? The reason why people hate this choice is that it takes time. You have to sit and listen. You need to give the marriage time. If you're Christians, you need to pray together. You need to mention these things and say, this is what is hurting us. It involves you maybe looking out for counselors and they help you to revive your marriage. It involves a lot of work and yet it is the best option. So the other third option usually is divorce. And this one, of course, is also among the worst because I mean, it masks, but then it is what makes it easier for people because the lawyer even said it involves very many good things. So at the end of the day, there are options to keep a marriage, but the options of keeping a marriage involves you making an intelligent decision. And you have to be committed yourself that I need this marriage. We need it actually, not one person. It's not a one-man show. So sometimes when the men say it is supposed to be the ladies to keep the marriage, or the ladies think it's supposed to be the men to keep the marriage, it will not work. It takes two people and it takes work. So divorce is, of course, the legal ending. And you know, it produces all those feelings of sadness, of hurt. Why? This is a dream that has been cut short, you know? People had a dream that this marriage would last, would have grandchildren together, and so on. So this involves significant challenges and very uncomfortable changes. So before you get that, look for these options, but they involve the best option of facing your personal problems, you know. But the moment you put up an endurance face, and that is the African way, they will say, just be there. Just be there until the person gets maybe high blood pressure, gets depression. Some of them, they end up in mental health hospitals. Then we hear people cutting each other with knives. That is endurance now. You're harboring. So please, even when we are talking about divorce, it's not because this is what we want people to do, but we are speaking about it because it's happening. I mean, the numbers are now too high, and in our generation, I don't know, because it has become like a cheap option for people, but still they keep suffering the pangs of it. It's the reason now the counselor comes in, the pastor comes in, the lawyer comes in, because we want the best for people. Okay, back to you. I don't know, Herbert? Yes. Herbert, you can go on. Hello, Lydia. We can now see. Lydia, we can hear you.
Okay, at least you can hear me, even if you can't see me.
We can't see you, but we can hear you.
That's enough. That's enough. At
Yeah,
least I can
it's
see all
okay.
of you.
Yes.
At least I can see all of you. And I was following as different people are putting in different input.
Yes.
Excuse me. As far as the divorce is concerned, someone talked about the risks. Someone talked about preparation for it. But I was also wondering, what if someone denies you divorce and you really feel in that situation you're actually dying in the situation, but you're denied divorce? I've heard of that. I don't know. I would really love to hear from Herbert just in a few seconds. And I also wish that our listeners are able to check in, ask a few questions, and talk to us as our panelists are listening. But before we open up the lines, and time has really gone, I don't know whether we are supposed to end. We are in 9 minutes. I don't know whether some minutes have been added. You let me know. But Herbert, please tell us, are there scenarios where divorce is denied? And if it is denied, what do I do? Do I have any right to walk out even when it is denied? Herbert, can you hear me?
Hello?
Herbert?
But
Yes, can you
Can you
hear me?
hear me?
Yes.
Had my question.
Yeah, I had your question. Can you hear me?
Okay, fine.
Yes, we can hear you.
Before I start speaking about that, Lydia, kindly try to activate your video because I can see you now, but your video I think is not activated.
Yeah, she says the video has issues. So
Oh,
yeah, we can hear her at least.
okay. Now, of course, there are instances where divorce can be denied. And the denial is based on the fact that there are grounds that you must prove for you to be able to be granted divorce. And these grounds under the law are mostly three of them. One is desertion, and second is cruelty. The third is adultery, which we all know. So I'll explain briefly what each means. Now, under cruelty, this as the literal meaning is, these are instances where you have a wife or a husband who beats you up, treats you inhumanely, basically in a cruel manner. Gets in the house, does not greet you, just abuses you all the time. This can be emotionally, it may not be verbally. So that amounts to cruelty. And as long as you can prove that, then you can be granted divorce. The other one is desertion. For example, I have a couple that have been living in separate homes since 2006, but they are still married. That is the interesting bit. So for as long as you do not undertake the process of divorce, you still remain married and you cannot marry anyone else. So for such a person, he or she has to go and prove that the person has deserted he or her, and they will be able to be granted divorce. The other one is adultery. Now, you know it is very hard to prove adultery unless you've got someone in the act. So you find that most people who want to use adultery as a ground, they have to bring proof as to show the circumstances that can prove adultery. And in the most obvious cases, when someone has a child with someone, for example, your husband has got a child with another woman, as long as you can provide those DNA papers to prove that actually the man is the father to that child, then there automatically you've proved your adultery. But there's what they call condoning and colluding. So in this aspect, I'll speak about condoning. Now, you might have all these grounds available for you. The man has deserted you, is cruel, is adulterous. But then you might fail for one reason that you've condoned. I don't know if we all understand. Condoning is an act or an omission. It can be positive or negative. So, for example, the man has committed adultery and you've known this child for over a period of time. And then because it's now convenient for you, you bring it as a ground for divorce. Now, when you go to court, they will tell you, I mean, you've known for all this time, 5 years. Why is it
Why
now?
have you been quiet?
So it would mean that you actually accepted it. So for you to bring it up as a ground for divorce, it will be unfair. So the courts are looking at the fairness in whatever grounds that you're bringing up. So it is important that for as long as you've not condoned an act, you take action there and then, but you all have to evaluate very many things before you think of a divorce.
Wow. Thank you, Herbert. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. I'm just wondering, we have barely 2 minutes to the end of time. Do we have extra time so that we can request our listeners to drop in their questions, to drop in their comments? They can send it as a message. They can send, I don't know whether they're allowed to talk. Yes. They can be given the right.
Lydia, on on that, we shall end at midday.
Okay, okay.
So for as long as members have questions, we shall go until midday, not past that.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
So members, whoever has tuned in, whoever has logged in at this time, we greatly appreciate the fact that you've logged in, you've put in your data, you mean COVID data, and someone puts in time to sign in. We don't take that for granted, and we have the opportunity to contribute to the topic, how we navigate, how we go through divorce, what are what happens thereafter, and I wanted to also know whether I can remarry after I've divorced, or once I've divorced, that's it. And then pastor said that you can't marry after divorce. But then I'm free. Why wouldn't I marry another person when I'm free? Pastor, are you there? Hello, Pastor. Pastor Andrew?
Hey, Pastor off.
Andrew is off. Because he gave a comment that according to church, you cannot marry again once you're done with marriage. But I don't know, when I'm free, why don't I marry again? I'm now free. And then meanwhile, as Pastor gets back online, I want to ask again, Herbert, you gave a comment upon which reason someone would actually divorce. Now, what if I love you no more? There's that thing. I no longer feel you. I no longer love you. Like, just, I don't love you. Can't I raise up some reasons and then I'm granted divorce?
Like I earlier communicated, that ground, if it was so available, then I think we would be divorcing 10 million people every day. Because that is the most available ground for if at all someone would put up and say we are no longer. But if you realize, most of even the children reach that point where they have irreconcilable differences with their very parents. So if that is going to be a reason for everyone, then it would make
then the divorce will be rampant.
The government would lose its essence in protecting families and the family unit. So they want to make divorce as expensive and as complicated as possible. So for you to access divorce, you must be able to go and prove, and the court is purely convinced that actually it is fair that these people be divorced. Now, earlier, courts have been divorcing people on that reason of irreconcilable difference, but there's a recent decision that overruled and said, according to our laws, we only know 3 grounds. And until the laws are amended to accommodate irreconcilable difference, it is not a ground available for anyone. So for now, you can put it up, and if you find and you know, most times, most of these judicial officers you find are women. So if you convince her, you can easily go with irreconcilable difference. But if you find a sober lawyer, he will overrule that decision and they will pronounce you as still married.
Actually, I have something to say about that, Lydia, because you know, everything has a beginning. By the time, that's why they say, before people decide, because marriage is a decision, only that it's entered upon through feelings. And I think Herbert talked about people these days. People have got the money, People have got the money, the young people today. So they have money to put up big weddings. They want to make the best. And you know, we have social media. My friends have to see, I'm getting the hottest guy, hottest girl around town. So you look at the reasons why people are entering marriage. They are entering marriage for the wrong reasons. Marriage is a decision. And once you decide and say, I want to get married, think about 50 years away from now to then, okay? Think about the time you're going to spend. Think about the family, the kind of family you want to have, you know? So once it's not a decision and it's a fashion and it's a feeling, feelings last shortly. And just know that love can fade, and therefore it needs to be attended to. No 2 people enter marriage because of beauty. Beauty also fades, unfortunately. you know. So if people only have these things, this girl is cute, she has the figure, she has the legs, those things only facilitate a relationship to start, but they do not keep a marriage. Because later on, this very beautiful girl with a figure is going to fade tomorrow after 2-3 children. This very guy who was a hunk, tomorrow, because of hard work and stress, is going to begin looking funny and changing. Remember, the feelings are going to change. And beautiful people will never stop being there in this world. We are always going to meet people who are better than our spouses. This is a fact, you know? And so does that mean that you have to keep getting different people because now your feelings are gone? That's why I said the other option of working on the marriage, which it takes work, is what people avoid. They just want things to move. Remember, if you married him with a lot of money, sometimes the money can go down. Are you going to file for a divorce? So that's why the lawyer is saying there must be really reasons which are sound. Adultery, cruelty, you know, when this person has become maybe animalic, you cannot just stay with them. And even it can be seeable, you know, maybe you're saving even the children, but not just for fashion. I don't feel like I love you. Feelings do not last. That one we should know. I can see someone's hand is up, Lydia. I don't know who it is.
Okay, maybe someone can help me.
It's written on me.
Sorry?
The person's that name is me. It's just me. So I don't know. Maybe they can just go ahead
Okay,
and
can the technical person allow the person in, or
well, ask a question. Yeah.
have them
And
ask their question? Because I don't have
they
those
can
resources.
even use the chat if they have not been, because I don't know what's happening. I see the hand is up, but they can also ask using this chat.
Yeah, okay. So members, feel free to type in your questions in the chat, and they will actually be responded to. The lawyer, the pastor, and the counselor are all here listening in to handle your situations. Now, what I saw that is a little bit risky is these days marriage is no longer okay in Uganda. Let me talk about Uganda. In Uganda, marriage is a fashion because having a wedding, when by the time COVID came, weddings were just the style. They had even brought in different styles, how to do it, how to make. For us who used to do event management, we realized that in every function there's something new that comes in. So every youngster was coming into a wedding, not a marriage. Okay, and then you also realize in the Western countries, according to statistics, marriage, the urge to get married is actually going down. The rate at which people divorce is the rate at which they marry. So the marriage thing, they divorce more and marry less. So that effect has made marriage not to be a very popular thing. I remember when we were young, little children would play bride and groom game, okay? Meaning they mimic that and they admire to be that. Today, it is failing to, it's no longer a prestige apart from putting on the gown. Now, Pastor, I really wish Pastor can come back online. Pastor,
Is
can you
Pastor
differentiate? Pastor Andrew, I don't know whether
Andrew
he's
is
Herbert?
not yet in.
Have you
yet.
tried to get him?
I can't see him among the list of participants because that's the
Oh,
only way I can be able to
get
grant
him
him
in.
access.
oh.
We are losing him. I hope he
Oh.
comes back before the next 15 minutes get to the
And
But
end.
in
are
the
our
meantime,
participants writing
Meantime,
on the
I
chat
have
room?
I have
Question and
people
questions?
have people popped in
in
the
the
questions
meantime, there are some questions that are being put forth that we
Yes.
can
under the chat.
address.
Yeah,
Under
yeah,
the
yeah.
chat.
The
There's
Q&A.
question Q and A. Q and
Under
A.
Q&A. Okay.
Yes.
I don't see. But if you can read them,
I can read.
but please could you read them
Herbert,
and
you read.
probably respond?
Uh, there is a question to do with, this is from Godfrey. If a couple is married, the law protects financially weaker spouses and any children. During divorce, the principle of equality applies where any properties available are shared regardless of who owns it. To you, Counsel Herbert, within your heart, do you find this fair? That is, and he adds that one get divorced without consent of the other party?
That is
Uh, now,
they're telling you, cancel.
Yes, please.
They are telling you to respond away from law. There is the legal perspective and there is a human perspective.
I'll
one for asking the
constrain.
question wants you to give at least the bit of the human perspective.
I'll constrain
They grant
myself
you.
to give the legal perspective,
Yes.
because in this instance, the human perspective does not matter before the court.
Oh,
The
right.
court is going to look at the law. What does the law say? And then the human bit only comes in depending on the nature of the judicial officer handling the matter. So me as the lawyer, my role in this case would be to argue my client's case. Now, if my client wants a certain percentage of the property, that's as far as my instructions can go. So the human part is always left to the judge or the magistrate to exercise that human part. So for us as lawyers, we try to invoke that humanity from the judicial person. However, to go to the to the legal perspective, the law always tries to refrain from denying people property that they are actually entitled to. Let me give an example. There are 3 stages. Before you get married to a person, you have your property. Or before you get married to a person, you have no property. Or you get to marry a person and both of you have property. So these are different scenarios. But what will aid the court to understand how to resolve such a case will be to look at the facts. Now, if you can provide evidence to prove that you bought your property before the marriage, then it will be deemed as your personal property. You bought it and the intention was for it to remain yours. Now, if you buy a property and you're already married, it will also depend on the circumstances, facts surrounding your marriage. Now, if you're in such a marriage where it's only the man that works and the woman remains home as the basic caregiver, so it means that the court will have to look into issues of fairness. It still remains a legal element to conclude that much as the woman did not contribute to this property and what of you, she contributed to the other emotional bit, well-being of the family, and for you as a man to be able to make that money to buy those things. So they will look at all those arguments, but it remains the role of your lawyer to espouse those arguments. Until your lawyer does that, then the court may fail to appreciate that element and how much you put into that marriage. So it would require arguments, for example, such as the instances where a man tells a woman, you remain home, I'll be the one to work. There are those instances where a woman was working before and the man says, no, since I have enough money, you remain home, I'll be the basic provider for the home. So if you can provide such information, it will be easier for court to conclude and say it was something that was foreseeable, that in the event that you divorce, you should share this property because you agreed one does the other part and for you do the other part. Yes. And then to address the second question, can one get divorced without consent of the other? Now, if you realize most of the divorces, no one ever consents. So it gets down to proving your grounds. So even if the other person does not consent, this in instances may even mean that you file a case in court and they don't even respond. They ignore out of ignorance, thinking that if they don't respond, the matter will not continue. The law provides for such protection against such kind of conduct. So if you don't respond, for us, we proceed without your presence. And you know, of course, what happens. The decision might come without putting in consideration of those arguments I've been talking about, that you remained at home, you are cooking, all those things. So the court will not have the opportunity to listen into those arguments, and therefore the likely outcome is that you're going to get a decision that you're going to say that was unfair. Yes.
Okay. But thank you,
Lydia, there's another question.
Yes.
I've seen, I think it's in this other chat from Janan. He's asking, I think, still a lawyer, that I think the pastor, that there are some churches that are allowing members to marry another wife, even if the partner is still living and still holds on the family. May pastor and the lawyer respond to that, Janan in Mbale.
Let me try to see which question that is. There are some churches that allow members. Is that the question? Now, just like the way you would go to buy land, we have an institution, or rather an office under the Uganda Registration Services Bureau called the Registrar of Marriages. Now, it is incumbent upon the churches under which partners decide to get married to have their marriages, or the marriages of the people they've wedded, to be registered in those churches. Now, you find that if you go and marry in those funny churches, they may not understand that they have this obligation to have your marriage registered. So it puts you under risk that it's likely that either of you, the people intending to marry in future, will easily get married to someone else without giving a person an avenue from which they can get information to find out whether you are married or not. Now, the Registrar of Marriages is an office where they register marriages, give it numbers, and if a person is to search and maybe enter a name, Nakyeyune Lydia, they will find that information will come out and say you are married in this church on this day to so and so. These were the witness, ABCD. So it is just like land. If you're going to buy land, you do a search and find out the ownership, the size, and what have you, to ascertain that what you're getting into is surely either vacant or available for you to purchase. So similarly, this information is not very up to date in Uganda because it has not been something that they've been pushing as a requirement. So you find that there are chances that those who are shrewd and that they are done with the relationships end up getting into other relationships, and the partners that they got married into are caught unaware. However, there is a solution under the law. If you get into such situations where your partner has gotten married to someone else, worry not. Just get to a lawyer and they will know what to do. And the simplest thing there to do is, the law is clear. Once you're married, you're supposed to get married and after you're divorced. So for as long as they've not divorced you, you only go to lawyers and have that marriage that they've contracted with whichever nullified. So apart from divorce, there's what they call nullification of marriage. So for divorce, you prove the grounds that we earlier intimated about: desertion, cruelty, adultery, and things to do like that. But then in nullification, all you need to prove is to provide that certificate to show that you are actually married to that person. That is all. And they will cancel that marriage to that person that they have married. And this is very common, by the way, in Uganda. People are getting married before they get divorced. And those marriages, when a man wakes up and wants to divorce you, he will simply go and say, I got married to Evelyn, I got married to Lydia, but I was already married to another woman. So the court will simply cancel it because their role is to protect the family. So which the family in this case will be the earlier marriage. Yes.
I hope questions are still coming in from our viewers and listeners. But I'm just wondering that if at one time I am not divorced by paper, but as well I decide to move out. I just move out and leave this husband or wife in the house, and I move out. Is marriage a legal binding that we must stay together, or we can as well be married while separated? We Each one is in their world, okay, but we are married by paper and by law, but we are living a different life. Or marriage means we must stay together.
I believe that is addressed to me. Now,
How did you know? Surely it is.
what you've actually talked about is true, and actually, majority live like that. They are still married, but everyone took their path. So you find that some of them come after 10 years since they were separated. You find the man lives in Mbale, even has children already. The woman is also somewhere else with another man, but they are still married, but each one moved on. So that is also an option. You can take it. So divorce is only relevant if you're planning to get married again. So that's when you will now realize that you need to be divorced.
Oh, it's not
Yes.
an issue till you want to marry again.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, dear listeners, we still invite in your questions. We have just a few minutes to go, like about 13 minutes. 13 minutes, and in the last 3-4 minutes, the panelists will give us their conclusive input as far as the topic is concerned. I don't know, because I cannot access the chat to see what you're sending in, but I would request those ones who are able to see it to keep checking so that we don't miss out on any person's question. Now, I am divorce. It's a word spoken but not very common in Africa, you know. It's as in not commonly embraced. Because as far as marriage is concerned, they tell you hang in there, be there for the children, stand strong, please don't leave your home, you know. And then I've seen in scenarios where the Western countries, when it is divorce, mostly the man moves out. Here in Africa, when it is divorce, a woman moves out. I want the counselor to compare and contrast the impact or the what that affects to the family. What would be better? Man to go start their life or woman to move and start their life?
Wow.
Evelyn, are you
Of
there?
course, yes, I'm there.
Okay.
I'm there, Lydia. And this is a very controversial question. The natural one, usually, the man moves out, especially when children are involved, just because in most cases, custody of children remains with the woman, because usually women are the ones who have the time to attend to the children, and more so if they are young. Although the children are allowed, like the lawyer said, the custody belongs to both, but there's one who stays with them. But usually it is the man who moves out. But in any case, even a woman can move out because these things of property, I don't know how, but depending on the negotiation and so on. Sometimes men also fear moving out because they can think that maybe that will make them not own. But I'm very sure by the time people reach that level, the lawyers have already settled things of negotiations on property. But the impact, of course, on children, like I said, is very huge because children are not going to these courts of law with you people. They are not going to listen to why you people have to divorce. They are only helped by maybe counselors, because these things have, if the children are of age, they have to begin being talked to. You know, mommy and daddy might will be separating, and they have to be helped emotionally, because the truth is still they will not be happy whether you want it or not. For them, they want you people together. So it's a huge psychological impact on the children. And like I said, depending on the age, there must be a lot of support. If it's a teenagers, because for them, they look at things. Remember, they are now also big. They have started, their thinking patterns have grown. They are seeing life differently. So they begin seeing partnership, marriage as meaningless, because the best models in this world for them are their own parents. And here they are walking away from each other, one even moving out. For younger children, 8 up to around 12, usually they blame themselves. That's why you see people, they grow up, but they have a certain kind of emotional unwellness, mental health issues. Because these kids are so young to interpret that big people can have these very huge problems. To an extent, they even, each one person moves out of their home. So they will keep blaming themselves. I think maybe it's because of
Evelyn,
this.
your voice keeps going down and down and down.
Oh,
Can you increase a
okay.
little bit? Yes.
Sorry.
It keeps
Yeah,
going
so like
down
I
and down.
said, depending on the age of the children are affected differently. Like I said, if they're middle, around 8 to around 12, they keep blaming themselves. They usually think they have a hand in the separation of their parents, you know? Maybe they think they're bad children. So you can imagine those emotions are going inside them and they have no one to help them out. If they're teenagers, they become even permissive. They begin looking at marriage and these things, they are useless. That's why we see such children begin to take even drugs. They begin to do dubious things that they used not to do, but just because they do not know how to cope, they are so young, you know, they end up doing the worst. So that's why the therapists, the support systems need to come in here to support the family as they move out. That's why we talked about mutuality. If you have decided that the thing is not going to work, then it should be mutual. Give each other time. So the children need also to be talked to. They need to be, you know, helped so that they can come to terms a little bit. They may not understand, but at least they need to be given time too. Yes.
Okay. So it looks like this whole thing called divorce, as long as you belong to family in one way or the other, it will affect you. Personally,
Yes.
I've not experienced it, and I wouldn't wish to ever experience it. But never is another long word. You don't just use the word never in your statement because you never know still. But I hear people say, I hear people put in their how divorce has affected them. But in our normal life, the usual life, people don't go to court. Maybe because court is expensive to go through those legal things so that you separate. I have a friend whom I've had. They married some time back. Up today, he wants to marry again and he can't because the wife refused to grant him divorce. Probably because he didn't know. Now I'm knowing from Counsel Herbert that even when the other person is refusing to grant you divorce, you can as well proceed because the person moved on with their life and married another man. But then she refuses to comply and come and sign papers to let the gentleman go forward. Whatever reason, I don't know. So when you say that even when someone has not signed in your papers, you can still move on, that I think can be a point of rescue. And I still want to emphasize, dear listeners, and those following, please, we are not advocating for divorce. But we are saying that if it's an inevitable act that is going to happen to you in your life, how do you move forward? How do you handle? Where do you go to seek help? And in the next, I'm giving counsel 2 minutes, 2 minutes to Evelyn and 2 minutes to Herbert to give us a conclusive word. And then counsel, please talk about where can we go to seek help. You talked about lawyers, but lawyers, you're very expensive. So tell us where we can find cheaper lawyers for this thing.
First, I'll talk into the issue of cheaper lawyers. Law, by its nature, is a profession that is related to billing, profitability, and all to do with business. It's a business. So, and you see, price comes along with the quality of service. This one, Evelyn will agree with me.
Right.
If you are to go to a cheap lawyer, that means the lawyer might not have certain levels of professionalism. All they care about is any money that comes in. But for us, at the end of the day, we want to look at the whole package. A package that is going to be suitable to have you get a very amicable divorce, a divorce that even at the end of the day, you, the divorcees, can always talk to each other, can always, even the other person that the lawyer was fighting against can even get cases for that lawyer or bring in business for that lawyer, because at the end of the day, you don't want a lawyer who is going to take the divorce as if he's the one divorcing or is interested in divorcing. You need a lawyer who understands what is at stake. So to get such qualities of lawyer, you're not going to get a one who is cheap. And mark you, divorce is not for the poor. Yes, because by the time you get married, you've put money. You get it. And most likely, the person you're fighting against has money. Or you who wants the divorce also has money. So, but at the end of the day, the choice is with the client. So for us, what we do as lawyers, we give you our bill and we justify why we bill it that way. So at the end of the day, it is up to the client to decide which lawyer they go for. However, there are institutions such as FIDA and those other organizations that handle divorces. So if we find that a client may not able to meet our bill, we can as well refer them to those legal aid service providers. But between you and me, you know that it's also a challenge. Those poor things don't come cheap. At the end of the day, you may find that there are some things that may not be handled the way you expect.
Wow. Okay, Herbert, our time has really gone. It's exactly
and
time
maybe to conclude,
yes.
There are also other ways that you can secure an amicable divorce prior or after you're married. For example, there are things that we call as prenup and postnup. Now, prenup, these are arrangements that you can document before you get into marriage and say, when it comes to that time, when that time comes, this is how we shall handle our issues. So you agree on property, those things we've been talking about that you need to consider. Custody, co-parenting. It is what we call them a prenup and a postnup agreement. So we can craft that when couples are planning to get married. And when they get married and the time comes for divorcing, it is easy. We just say, this is what we agreed to.
This is what you agreed.
Yes. So those are also alternatives. And also there's what they call, so it can be before marriage and when you're into the marriage.
Okay.
And when you're into the marriage, we call it a postnuptial agreement. Before it is called a prenuptial agreement. So
thank you,
there is also what we call a separation agreement, which you can agree on when you are into the marriage and you realize now it's no longer working. You can as well do what they call a separation agreement. But this, you realize, works for people who have mutually reached that point where they still talk, but they feel like it's not working. So because it requires the other person to sign that document and say, I agree to what we have agreed upon. So for failure to have this consensus, then you have to follow the divorce processes, which does not require anyone to consent.
Okay. Yes.
Network is breaking.
Okay. Oh, yes. I think Herbert has given his take. And yes. So I can see.
Thank you, Counsel, and thank you so much. Yes.
I wanted to give my conclusive remark. Yeah. I wanted to say that as counselors or psychologists, our role is neutral. Neutrality means we listen, okay? Our work is to help listen to parties. Like if you are having toxic emotions, and maybe we encourage couples that they shouldn't wait for a marriage to go wrong to seek help. Come and speak to counselors and be coached. Marriage needs continuous learning, continuous education, so that as small things pick up, you can be helped. However, if everything has gone wrong and like we've reached to this conclusion where the marriage is completely dead, the goal of a therapist here is to help the parties to maintain reasonable calm and civil communication, to help them address the confusion, the fears, and all other emotions that arise, both for the couple and also the children. So our role is more or less neutral, to help marriages work. But in case they have not worked, we also help people to end mutually, because I think our aim here has been mutuality, because this is not the end of you. The legal has ended, but the status has not ended. You are still parenting children together. So thank you so much. Lydia, I don't know if Pastor is. Lydia, are you on?
I'm trying to log in, Pastor, but then I see him, but
yeah, he's the one who is called me, actually.
he has just communicated it. I'm trying to, I'm getting similar problems like what I was having with Lydia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lydia is still on?
Lydia is on. I can see her.
Yeah, I can see her, but like she's not talking.
Otherwise, I guess that's it. Because we are 30 minutes past the agreed time.
True.
I don't know whether Lydia will come back and conclude. She's having similar problems with.
She's having issues with network.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thanks for participating.
Yeah.
This has been the first of its kind.
Yeah.
Those that are interested in us discussing any other topic related, or who are interested in having this same discussion again aired, we can arrange that as well. And it will be a much more better visually and audially. So for now, I beg to close the webinar.
Okay.
And thank all the participants and panelists for being a part of this Zoom.
Thank you too.
Okay, bye-bye.